Why is it so hard to learn?
That's a really good question.
How are you?
How are you?
Fantastic. How was my process?
So why can't we do what we preach, right?
I feel like people find it sort of really good.
Can I tell you a story? It may have nothing to do with your question, but I hope it does in some shape or form. Hello, hello. There is a man in the Persian world. His name is Fariduddin Attar. Attar was a philosopher around the 12th century or so, 12th, 13th century. In it, there's a story of a gravedigger. And one day his son goes to him and asks, Dad, you've been like carrying corpses most of your life to their grave. Have you learned anything? He says, yes. What I've come to realize is that despite being around the dead so much and so often, I always fail to see myself as a corpse. So I keep wasting time, I keep wasting energy on frivolous and ridiculous things. Sometimes you're inspired to do some things. I don't know if you play video games, I don't know if you smoke, or the things that your parents once in a while tell you not to do too much of. And during your inspired moments, you say to yourself, I'm not going to play video games as much. Maybe I'm going to limit myself to an hour, maybe 2 hours, max, but not 5 or 6 hours. Maybe it's because you see your mom, working in the kitchen, you see your dad cleaning the house, and here you are just sitting in your room, living a relatively princely life, and food is ready, they call you to the kitchen, your laundry is done. And so you look at your parents and all the things that they do, and you look at yourself and what a waste you are, and all of a sudden you're inspired. And you say, I'm going to be better to my parents, and I'm going to do better by myself, And it's great, those inspired moments. And then life gets in, you get distracted, you get a call from your friend, you realize that your essay is due tomorrow, but you don't want to do it, so the way you distract yourself is to play video games. Even if none of those things are true, the fact is that you've been playing video games for such a long time that you're an addict of sorts. That even these inspired moments fail to kind of transform you. That's one of the reasons why, we don't really act what we preach. First, because we don't really understand what we're saying. We don't understand how layered it is, the sort of sacrifices that we are required to make. Imagine if you drive home and you see a lot of homeless people on the road, and you say to yourself, Adrian, you should really change your habits a little bit. You should start helping people, And again, it's another inspired good moment. And you go around telling your parents, and you do give a few dollars here and there, then you get home. and then you're on this, high platform. You preach to your parents, you preach to your friends that we should help other people, and then you forget. In other words, maintaining an inspired moment that has the power to transform you and keep you transformed for a long time, they're very, very, very difficult to maintain. So we are nothing but simply a container for great bumper stickers. Very difficult to apply to real life, Let's say you get a C in the class and your parents catch you and you feel guilty because you were sent to school, you're an immigrant, your parents sent you to school to be better than they are, have a better life perhaps. And they say, son, you can do better, get an A so you can get to Berkeley or Stanford or Yale. And you say, okay. And you really want to. You want to do good by your parents. You want to get to a good school. But you realize that, writing a good essay for a class requires you to sit and think and reflect and write and then go back and read what you've written and revise over and over and over again. But it's too much work. And you're 18, This is one aspect of it. The other is, I think, ideas go through various stages of evolution. Do you have a companion? Those of us in this class who have had companions will tell you that whenever you get into a difficult situation with your companion and he or she catches you having done something wrong, maybe not washed the dishes or taken the garbage, and he or she screams at first and then throws a temper tantrum of sorts and then, storms off and comes back after 5 hours, and you sit down and you say, okay, I'll do it. And you'll do it for a couple of weeks, if you're lucky. And then you'll forget, okay? And it means that you made yourself a promise to take out the trash, but you forget the promise. In other words, you fall back to sleep, you fall back into being casual, you fall back into just becoming forgetful. In other words, we go back to being our old self. Change of any kind really requires a good amount of support system, a good amount of force. Now, one of the things about ideas is the following. First, you have an idea and you try to kind of implement that particular idea into your own life. That's all you do. It's just about you. And it's going to take you a long time to be able to apply that idea just to yourself. And to be able to do that, you have to understand it. And you have to fall and you have to fail plenty of times until you come to realize the value of the idea. It's kind of like going to school. I don't know how old Erica is. I don't know how old Markel is. I don't know how old the rest of these people are. But the truth is, they shouldn't be here. They should have been done with Laney at the age of 20, maybe 19, if they had a relatively a good amount of force in their life. Their parents telling them, listen, you're 13 now, you can start taking college classes. And by the time they're 18, not only are they done with high school, they also have 60 college units. Then you transfer to a 4-year school. By the time you're 20, you have your bachelor's. By the time you're 22, you have your master's. By the time you're 20, you have your PhD. Okay? So it takes you a long time for you to say, you know what, I was here at the age of 18. I thought I understood. I am back here at the age of 25. I'm back here at the age of 30. So it takes a long time for you to kind of understand and then apply the understanding. Then comes the next stage, next evolution of ideas, which is you have a kid brother. His name is Richard. And he's a goofball, very much like the way you were when you were younger. And you try to tell him, stay in school, stay in school. And all of a sudden, the idea is no longer about you. The idea now has a social aspect to it. You have transcended the area where this idea can only be applied to. You've understood, you've applied, you've graduated. Now you share your wisdom with Richard. Now you become a social activist, okay? Then you come to realize that, you know what, maybe Richard has concrete in his head, I don't know. Maybe he's in the right place to really listen, to hear, to transform. But the idea is no longer personal. It's about him. It's about him. Now you become a social activist. Okay. Then you do something really interesting. You realize that you want this idea to be legislated, in the sense that it's no longer about your brother, it's no longer about your sister, it's no longer about the people you know. You want it for everyone because you've understood something very profound, beneficial about the idea that everyone should get health care. Everyone should get free education. And then you try to legislate the idea. So remember, first the idea was about you. Then it was about the people in your life. Then you realize how valuable the idea is. Now you try to legislate it. It means that you have to sleep with politicians. You have to become a good lobbyist. You have to push your agenda. Then you realize no one's buying. No one wants to legislate the ideas. They're far too difficult. And now the idea for you takes a different platform. You become a militant. You use force, military force. You try to push this idea into someone's throat by force, by meanness, because you know that people don't have common sense. I don't know if you've ever watched Muhammad Ali. Do you know who he is? The boxer. When he was very young, of course, he refused to go to Vietnam, saying that those people haven't done me wrong. There's no reason for me to go out there and kill them. This is, the white man's problem. I'm not going to partake in it. And what you realize when he's interviewed, when it comes to the issues of race, money, boxing, children, he's very, very forceful. He doesn't say just my life. He groups white people as one, black people as the other, and he doesn't sugarcoat anything. He just goes for the jugular. So there comes a point where you don't really sugarcoat any ideas. You realize that it's really difficult to sit people down and in a commonsensical, reasonable, rational way to educate them. You kind of do what the Native Americans do, which is, we sat down with people, with the white folks, we signed papers. They broke their promises over and over and over again. It seems that these people don't really know what they're signing and how they need to hold their promises. The only reasonable thing for us to do is to fight. And sometimes you fight for these ideas to become universal. But going back to your question and making it very, 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 very simple, you need to summon up a good amount of will to overcome what we call sloth. There are days I get here like 4 a.m. and I sit to write and I'm tired. I didn't wake up to get to the office and watch YouTube. I went to the office to do work, but my body fails me. And then when I'm tired, my mind fails me. It's lazy. And I have to fight my body and my mind. And it's a tough thing to do. And oftentimes I just fail. So there are lots of things to overcome to make sure that you remain true to the ideas you have. That you can... There is a man whose name is Sa'di, that he says there are 3 things you should never look for. Let me see if I can remember them. The first is, never look for someone who does what he preaches. It's not possible. And never look for perfection, because it can be found in human life. And never seek to realize the image of God that's beyond you. So these 3 areas of life you should try to walk away from, or at least, not to expect too much of yourself.
When the last year was being God.
Yeah. I guess Sadi would just have a big mouth. He didn't really understand what he was saying. You don't find very many people in history who followed what they preached. You know, Malcolm X was one, Jean-Jacques Rousseau was another, Karl Marx was another, Mahatma Gandhi was another, Jesus was another. The rest of us, we're just preachers. You know, when it comes to compassion, very, very selectively. When it comes to generosity and being charitable, very, very selectively. So, yeah. You should, I suppose, be thankful that you have some good ideas at least that you can talk about once in a while. What's his name? C.S. Lewis wrote this book some years ago, The Screwtape Letters, where this man goes to church assuming that all the churchgoers are very much close to like Jesus Christ. You know, they speak in the same way, they have the same spirit inside them, and they behave in the same way that Jesus did. And he goes in there and he comes to realize that, well, these people have eaten so much food that their belly is like over there, you know, they have a double chin, they're stupid, they're lazy, they talk gibberish. And he says, just because, you know, you have the title like Christian or a Buddhist or a Muslim, you're really no different than the scumbag who's out there. So, yeah.
Does knowing the consequences of an action make one mature or just instinctual?
Knowing the consequences
of an action.
So you get caught in two different ways. Let me just say that, let's just say you and I are in a relationship. Is that okay? It's just a hypothetical. Okay. And we've been together for about 5 years. Sounds okay? You want more or less?
I'm fine with either.
About 4.5 years. Is that okay? And you know what happens in long-term relationships, right? What happens? They kill you. You literally just die. That's what happens. You're under an avalanche of responsibilities. Right? Look at Matthew. Sorry, Castor, I know he's yours, but today's... No, I know he has a hat on, so you can't see his beautiful hair, but... And he looks at you, and you look at him, and all of a sudden you're inspired. You can live in a culture that says no to such transgressions, that you should have the modesty as a woman not to look at him in a certain way, not to even talk to him. Okay? That's culture imposing certain do's and don'ts. And just in case you cross certain lines, the culture will force you to feel guilty. It's not even really up to you. Because that's the cultural narrative. You're a married woman or you're in a relationship, and there are certain things you cannot do. Okay. And just in case, you know, your husband find out, I will become angry. First, I will go to his house. Since he's bigger than I am and stronger, I'll just try to buy him a cup of coffee and talk with him. But since you're smaller than I am and you're a woman and I'm a man, I'm stronger than you, I'll scream and yell at you. That's usually the way things go. You've been caught. Okay. And now that you've been caught, you feel the consequences. But this kind of being caught is an imposition from the outside. It comes to you from out. There is another kind, that there's a sense of maturity about you, that you are you have this capacity that we call muraqabah. It means being watchful. In other words, you're watchful of the way you think, of the way you feel, of your actions, you know, all those things. And just in case you catch yourself being very close to crossing a line, you catch yourself and you step back. Okay. Now, rarely do we have that particular kind of maturity. And if we do, it's only for very, very superficial things. You know, it's kind of like Going back to Adrian's question, you play video games, you in fact promised yourself the night before not to play for 5 or 6 hours, and you've been at it for about 3 hours. All of a sudden you catch yourself. Okay? Now, this catching yourself can either cause a good amount of disgust that impacts your self-confidence, your self-image. It brings up all these like awful emotions about you. You like throw your game in disgust and you walk away and you're just angry because you're just so weak, right? Now, if you happen to be a practitioner of watchfulness, what happens is every time you get close to transgression, you catch yourself and you backtrack. But either way, you will never know the consequences until you have sinned, if you want to use religious language. And by sin simply means missing the mark. By that I mean you made yourself a promise, you wanted to keep true to the promise, but you forgot. That's considered a sin. Okay? You have a class on Monday from 9:30 to about 10:45. An essay is due. You just didn't do it. Okay? And so you expected an A, now it goes down to a D. That becomes a sin. So anytime you make yourself a promise, and that promise is way up here, but you can't reach that, okay? A certain aspect of your happiness, your joy disappears. And then you catch yourself. And then you say, you know what? I'm going to go to his office and have a chat with him. That becomes your church where you repent. You say, Amir, I'm really, really sorry. My life, A, B, C, D. Is there a way I can make up? Sure. Okay. So, in many regards, you and I are like a 2-year-old kid who has never touched a very, very hot stove. You just go and you touch it. Now, you have no idea what's going to happen once you cross certain lines, especially if the experience is brand new for you. So you have to make a lot of mistakes. Someone has to tell you that those are mistakes. Then the feelings of guilt and shame need to be injected inside you. Now you're a good candidate to feel guilty about things. There are some, go to Utah, for example. It's okay if you marry like 50 women and have 5,000 children. There is no need for shame. There is no need for guilt. That's just their culture. If you do this here, then you'll have shame and guilt. And you realize that most of the emotions that live inside you, such as consequences, being negative or positive, are really imposition from the culture. Be it your parents, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, the books you've read, the movies you've watched. It's really difficult to be autonomous. To come to a place where you say, you know what, I just know this is right and I know this is wrong. I don't really care what God says. It's a mistake that every 18-year-old makes when they encounter their parents. They say, I want to leave the house. I think I'm mature now. The parents keep telling them, you're still stupid, very stupid. You leave, you make a lot of mistakes. You go back to your parents at the age of like 70. Are we...
Scientists today are becoming more preoccupied with more is what they can do and what should be. Let me say this. But you believe scientists these days are more preoccupied with what they can do and not thinking about who they should. Like these things, just for example.
Galileo was a great scientist. And scientists are just curious. They want to discover, they want to explore, they want to understand. That's not me. I'm not a scientist. I'm just a layperson. I want to believe in something. Galileo discovers that the earth revolves around the sun. Now, I'm a church-going man, I believe in God. I think that inside me there is a soul. That soul has been given to me by God. And the earth is my home. It's a place that was given to me by God because why? I'm special and I have dominion over other things. These are just basic teachings, and these are basic things I need to make sure that my life continues to have meaning and purpose. Galileo comes forth and, hello, and gets rid of all of that. Okay? And what happens is Galileo begins to advertise those ideas, not really him, but people after him. And now look at me, the 21st century. There is nothing special about me. I have no soul. The earth is not special. Maybe even there is no God. Now, the discoveries may be good for Galileo because he's a scientist and he only worships one thing, his own intellect and his own ability to discover and explore. I am not that. I just want to believe. Just tell me Santa Claus is true. That's all I want. You know, I'm not Socrates walking around asking myself if my life has been examined. I just need you to look at me and say, Amir, I love you. That's all I want. You know, I don't want to go on this quest to examine what love is, what truth is, what justice is, what it means to be a human being. I don't care for those things. I like lies. God bless you. Yeah.
I have two. One was there's a word in W that's called sabi. And so like that a good way to go about like
You know, I envy you guys, you young people, because you look at the adult world, people like me, and the world that people like me have created, and you despise it, you dislike it, you hate it, because it's complicated. You take classes for the wrong reasons, you have jobs for the wrong reasons. A society gives you poison to swallow, you know, and it makes every part of your life just smell bad. And so you say to yourself, maybe I should just leave society, go into the forest like Yosemite. When I was your age, you know, I left for Yosemite. I lived there for like 5-6 months. And I used to work there, wash dishes, and they give you about $19. They give you a room, and the rent is $19 a month. You live in the woods. You know, you rarely talk to people. On the days off, you just go on hikes. And that's when you're young. And you have this vision about you. You know, I want to suck the marrow out of life. I want to live passionately. And I see my dad coming home exhausted. I see my mom coming home exhausted. I take classes. These instructors are no good, you know. And you realize that Karl Marx was in fact right, that something happened to us the moment factories came about. That life was no longer authentic. Life was no longer creative. You're exploited every single moment. Okay. And so there is a stage where you long for simplicity, simple ideas, simple people, simple outfits. You know, you watch Kim Kardashian and all the things that she has done to her body and the way she advertises all sorts of things. Some people may like it, but other people say, you know what, I just want to go out with someone who is simple, you know, who's transparent, who's not like covered under layers of makeup. Okay. Then unfortunately you grow up, you know, where you realize that it was good to be alone for a while in the forest, but you know, you want a companion. And you want to give, you know, the best that life has to offer to your children. And you realize little by little life contaminates you. There are some people who live off the grid. There are this couple, I used to watch them on YouTube once in a while. They moved away from the city and they bought a huge farm in Tennessee. And the husband and the wife built themselves this beautiful mansion with their own hands. They have cows, and dogs, and cats, and rats, 4 kids. Sounds great, you know. And you would hope that your kids are going to look at you, learn from you, and mimic or copy the sort of lifestyle that you as their parents have. Whether or not it comes to fruition, I don't really know, you know. But going back to Adrian's question, you know, there comes a point where you realize life in the city is just no good. And you know, write essays about life in the city is no good. You talk to your friends about life in the city is no good. Now, the next stage is, well, can you bring that idea into action? What exactly do you need to sacrifice? Is it worth the sacrifice? You know, the city is beautiful, man. There is Safeway. You're hungry, you go to Ike's, you go to Zachary's, you go to Round Table. You're bored, you know, you can do all sorts of things. To the forest, what are you going to do? How are you going to make your food? You live in uncertainty, and you have to be really strong-willed and enormously passionate to just throw your life to the wind and say, okay, whatever.
But how you said that, like, maybe, like, talking about the, like that, you just like said, I wouldn't say like in nature somewhere, just like isolated, like, I get.
It's going to take you a while to detox from city life. There's going to be a good amount of conflict. Because imagine the city to be your companion, and you break up with your companion. Well, you're going to have relapses. You know, you're going to have a lot of conflict. Because village life is no fun. It's very, very, very quiet. I mean, imagine when you go home and there is not a peep. The TV doesn't work, there's no electricity, you're home by yourself. What are you going to do? Well, you're going to be restless. You're going to call your friends. You're going to call your brother, sister, mom, dad. When are you guys going to come home? Are you going to bring in sushi or pizza? What's the story? You know. The other thing you need to understand is, for the longest time in our human history, we have been communal social animals. It's only recent where all of us long to find or go back to nature, as Rousseau would say, as Karl Marx would say. You know. We still don't have, yeah.
Does
Matthew.
Does free information inevitably lead to self-destructive behavior? And if so, should we, society, like make steps to suppress free information?
As long as you don't act on the information, I think you'll be fine. You know, it's kind of like in about 2 weeks or so, you should drive around Berkeley, where the students live, you know, and you have all these beautiful brand new furniture out there. It's all free. As long as you don't take them, your house will remain uncluttered. The moment you take all these free stuff to your home, and then you can walk into the garage or the living room or the kitchen or any of the bedrooms. If, on the other hand, you have come to realize that there is a desk that you need, so you drive around Berkeley, but you're only looking for a desk that's suitable for your room. It can't be too big, it can't be too small, it has to be this particular shape, it has to have drawers. And so you become very, very selective, you know. It first of all depends on what exactly it is you're looking for, you know. Second, just because you have information, it doesn't mean that you're going to act on it. Going back to what Adrian had asked. Third, I think whatever freedom may be, it's always good to have it in a very controlled environment. One of the artworks in Japan, the calligraphy that they do, they have this wonderful idea that there is the brush, the pen, there is the ink, there is the blank canvas. You put your brush in the ink pot only one time. The moment that brush hits the canvas, you can't lift it. If you do, you can't put the canvas, the brush back on the canvas again, or the paper. You only get one shot. Whatever you want to do, you do it in that one shot. That's it. You don't have the freedom to go over it again and again and again. It doesn't work that way. And you realize that first you have to sit back and ask yourself, what exactly is it that you want to create? And then before you actually take up the pen and write on the canvas, grab yourself an ink pen somewhere, a blank sheet of paper, maybe 50 of them, and practice until it becomes part of who and what you are. Then when you become very, very proficient, then you can use the expensive stuff. It also depends where you get the information from. I mean, right now, you Google one simple thing and 50,000 sites come up. And we're not the sort of animals that enjoy options. We can't do options. You can't go out with 50 people at the same time. I think by nature, we can only kind of focus on one single thing. And then when it's saturated, when it's finished, then move on to another. The idea of like going out with 2, 3, 4, 5 different kinds of people, it just doesn't work. Erica. Okay.
So what's the difference between like free will and like determinism? Like
Jeez.
wanting to do something versus having to do it. I forgot like question was supposed to be something different.
It's okay. I'm not going to respond to everything that you've said. You want to have korma sabzi tonight? Oh. Soup. So before you can exercise your will, before you can go out there and experiment with something, first you must have had some exposure to it. Okay? So the idea of like going out there and doing whatever doesn't work. The point is, what have you been exposed to? Okay? That's number one. Second, what you experienced, did it give you pleasure? If so, how much? Or did it give you misery? If so, how much? Let's say that you had Zachary's and you had Round Table. Okay? And you had Domino's. Your taste buds are so deprived and depraved. It's like asking you, would you listen to Miley Cyrus or Pavarotti? And you say, Miley Cyrus. What's wrong with you? Jokes aside, you exercise your will to only choose that which you assume to be the bringer of pleasure. That's all. So you choose between the options available to you. I go home and I make broccoli. And I'm going to say, I don't really care what my kids want. This is what they're going to have. And I'm determined to give that to them. And they come home and they whine and they nag, and I'm going to force their mouths open and grab this broccoli and just put in their mouth. Determinism. Things are planned beforehand. Free will is the following. I'm not going to give them chocolate chip cookies, ice cream, broccoli, and chicken tikka masala, because they're going to gravitate most likely towards ice cream. I'm not going to allow them to exercise their free will. You know why? Because they're kids and they're stupid. So I'm going to limit their free will. Broccoli or chicken tikka masala. The more mature you are intellectually, the better you're going to exercise your free will. The less intelligent, maturity, experience, and processing those experiences, the less you're able to exercise the free will. Imagine for a moment that you are 25. Can you imagine that? Imagine for a moment also that you have made some bad decisions in your life. Can you imagine that? Imagine for a moment now that someone has walked into your life and is able to give you other kinds of options that will perhaps lead you to a different kind of a lifestyle. Exercise your free will. Are you going to go back to the old life or the new life? The old life is familiar. The old life is comfortable. You know the pains, you know the pleasures. The new life is uncertain. Which one are you going to choose? Free will. How's this? 2 plus 2 equals 4. 955 times 258 equals $5,955.28. Option 1, option 2. Which one are you going to choose? You're going to choose 2 plus 2 equals 4. Free will exists only for those who don't know. It's the realm for the confused, not for those who know. You know, I take 4 pills every day for my heart. I'll have the option not to take them, but I know that my heart will stop, so I take them. Maybe. What's the 100 on your jacket?
100 years of Legion of Honor.
Are you?
They gave us stickers.
Oh, okay. Ari, is it? Anyways, Matthew. Yes, John. Junior.
I do rules and we must decide.
We are just meant to suck the life out of things. She knows. Casera. What happens when you like something? Is there like a particular food that you enjoy? Let's just say it's pizza. And let's just say it's Zachary's pizza. And let's say you haven't had it for a while, but now you desire it. You wait for 45 minutes for this food to come to your table and it does. Are you going to eat slow or fast? There you go. Spoken like a true pig. How many slices can you have before you start throwing up? And that which was once interesting no longer is. That's what we do. Are you sick? Sometimes blessing comes in disguises, but that's besides the point. So that's what we do, man. Next time you fall in love, love makes you hungry. And you want your companion. You want their body, you want their emotions, you want their intellect, you want their soul, you want all of them. And then you'll have them. And then you'll sit back and you say, really, was I that stupid? She's not really worth my time. That's what we do. That's why religion works, because God is far, far, far away. That's why it's nice to fall in love with people like Malcolm X. They're just mysterious. People like us, we have nothing. After 2 weeks, 2 months, we have nothing more to offer anyone. That's one of the nice things about being parent. Because your kids, they're like a bucket of worry. You worry about them all the time. Their friends, what they're doing, how their school is. These days, if they're a boy or a girl or in between, if they're going to graduate, if they're going to be homeless, endless. So next time you begin to like someone and then fall in love with them, when you guys go out on a date, what are you going to say to them? Junior, you're going to look at her and say what? There will come a time I will grow enormously tired of you. You disgusting bitch. That's how it usually is. I mean, that may inspire her to get to know you more. There's a reason Dante had argued that whatever human beings touch, it turns into dust. Elise? Casero, yes. Derek?
Separate the artist from the art.
The what?
Art from the art.
It's kind of like what? Damn. Adrian? Is it? You sure? Adrian had asked, which is, why can't artists themselves be like a piece of art? I mean, why did Picasso have to be such a jerk? And he was a jerk. Why did Thomas Edison have to be such a vicious capitalist? Why did Jean-Jacques Rousseau, despite all of his splendor, had to take his kids and house them in orphanages? Yeah, and that's the point. You know, I think the best way to look at this is, you know, an artist is this inspired human being who creates something magnificent and then drops back just being a regular, normal, crummy human being. Have you ever been in love? You have? You're so young. Is he or she still in your life? Do you think about this person? Did you used to? See, one of the things that love does, you become an artist in the sense that all you see is beauty and perfection. While you were in love, fantasizing about this person, did you ever like have her image in your mind where she was having like 3 fingers in her nose? No, why? Because that's what love does. It makes you into an artist. It beautifies this thing we call a human being. They are beyond human. They don't use the bathroom. They don't need to shower because they never sweat. And if they sweat, it smells like perfume. You know, they can't do anything wrong. I mean, that's what artists do. Have you seen Thomas Kincaid? His paintings, you know who he is? Thomas Kincaid is this like Christian prick. You know, magnificent paintings, beautiful. You know, there's always like this tiny little cabin in the middle of the forest. It's okay. You know, river, a couple of goats or deers, the sun, the moon, the stars, angels. You can even see Yahweh's beard. But you know what he used to do? His students used to paint. And all he did was to sign his name. That's all he did. And he made millions. And you could say, why would an inspired artist exploit his students and make money off of them? Well, because, there is a moment where you're an artist, there's another moment where you're a politician, there's another moment where you're just a crummy human being. That's all it is. One of the things you will soon discover, Derek, right? When you fall in love with someone, after a while you guys become like very, very comfortable with each other. So, you take a shower and she takes a shower and you guys, after a while, like walk around naked. No judgment there. It's beautiful. It's like both are in the Garden of Eden, walking around naked. No judgment. All of a sudden, something happens after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks if you're lucky. You begin to put a towel around you. And this person asks, what's the towel for? Oh, I'm just cold. No, you're not cold. You just don't want to be seen naked. You no longer see her as this non-judgmental, non-human sort of an entity. In fact, you don't like the way she looks at you. In fact, you don't want to be visible like that towards her anymore. That's what we do. Good luck. Yeah.
Love something, whether it's a person or an activity, or part of you have to also hate it.
I think whenever you feel something for anything, it makes you responsible. That you're going to have feelings and emotions you don't really want to have. You have thoughts you don't really want to have. Your body is forced to do certain things you don't really want to do. So it's a cross. Every time, again, you have a need-based interaction with anything. It's beyond the want, it's beyond the stage of curiosity. You actually just need it. It nourishes you, it sustains you. You become responsible. It makes you be responsible. It's kind of like has a tendency of protecting itself. I mean, imagine you love someone. It's really no longer about you, Matthew. It's about this love has its own unique sense of intelligence. It wants to stay alive. So it manipulates you, exploits you. Send her an email, send her a text, call her. Even though you don't really want to, intellectually you don't want to, but your emotions keep pushing you. It's only because the emotion itself desires to stay alive. If you take Darwin's approach and you categorize love as an emotion that has its own intelligence and desires to survive, until you just become indifferent. It's like me coming to class. I no longer care if my class is interesting, boring, inspiring, dead. Doesn't matter for me.
Could you ever go back to being fully devoted to religion after getting
Being what?
fully devoted?
Fully devoted?
To religion after getting contaminated by science?
So I'll tell you a story about one of my students some years ago. she had taken a class from this other instructor, and he was really good at what he did. This is the 1990s. I don't think way back then we had LGBTQ and all the numbers and letters that came after it. We just had like, gays and lesbians. That's all we had. I think, if I'm not mistaken. And so one of the things you have to do, I think, as an instructor and as someone during those times, you're gay, you're also teaching in an environment where there are lots of religious people. If you want to wrestle with the religious folks, you need to know the Bible, inside and out. And you don't study the Bible because you want to know Jesus Christ, because you want to have a love affair with God, or you're enjoying Christian doctrine. No. You want to know the Bible inside and out to kind of wrestle with the students who come to your class and challenge you. Why are you gay? Why are you this? Why are you that? And so you can throw all these ideas from the Old Testament back or New Testament back to their face and paralyze them, So this young student took his class, and she was mesmerized by what, the way he used to teach. And so she became an atheist. Time passed. Then she went back to who she's always been. Her parents were religious. She eventually became religious. Now she teaches, in fact, religious studies. I think if anyone is able to crack a certain foundation in you, and if they were to protect that crack to make it bigger and bigger and bigger, then yes. If on the other hand, they create a crack and they leave you alone, eventually, your temperament, your personality, your experience, the tendency of bringing these two cracks together, and you'll go back to being, the person you've always been. I am from Iran. In the past 40 years of having this particular regime dominating the culture, people actually burn the Quran. People don't really believe in God. People hate religion. But then you sit and have a conversation with them. And you realize that, yes, there is a version of religion they don't really like. But the music they listen to, the poetry that they read, the sort of language they use to kind of communicate, everything about that is religious. And they understand that. There is also another thing about religion. You don't need religion if you can find a sufficient meaning for yourself in life. If you can be a scientist and remain a scientist until the day you die, you don't need religion. For myself, speaking personally, my life is very, very shallow. I've been married for a while, so that component we call love doesn't exist. I've had kids for a while, so this romanticized fatherly emotions, that doesn't exist in me. I've been in the classroom for a long, long time. These ideas are uninteresting. And what I'm trying to tell you is that little by little, all the things that used to give my life meaning and passion and purpose have been removed from me. Now I stand naked. I have nothing to stand on, except once in a while I do read the Bible. Once in a while I do read the Quran, only to bring back some magic into my life, to have some feelings. I think if you're someone like me, it's good to be religious. You don't have to believe in, all sorts of things that religion has to offer you, but the things that work for you. Yeah.
Earlier on, I know,
just have a question.
Yeah.
I was reading this book,
Ugh, yuck.
it just said be impeccable with your words.
No, forget that. He's not good. Why do you read these books? By who? Yeah, just burn it. It's no good. No, it's no good. It's a useless book. I'm just kidding. I was in Yosemite, I remember many, many years ago when, like, the Four Agreements, was it? Yeah, it came out.
Wait, so if I list the agreements, like it's impeccable with your words, don't take anything personally.
No, because he's stupid.
Why?
People like him, we were warned by Karl Marx about such people. Look around you, man. Not this room, but just look around you. Well, this room too. Look, exhausted, depressed, severely depressed, homeless, miserable. And you know what these people do? Practice no thought. Be free of thinking. Live in the moment. Breathe. Go to some toy shop and buy yourself a yoga mat. You know, you live in this world, man. There are lots of things to be angry about. Diet! You have to be, look, you have a girlfriend. Sometimes she pisses you off. What do? She doesn't exist. Yes, her words mean nothing. Yes, What are you, stupid? You fight. You make her understand, or she makes you understand, if you want to stay with her. You wrestle and it's bloody. Life is messy, man. All these people out there trying to pacify you. No, fuck that. Hi, Erica. I'm upset. I don't even know why. What? What is? No, it's called being human.
Some people endlessly have that.
Look, you have educated anger. Do you have children? She has kids. I have kids. You know what we do when we go home? We scream. Kids are idiots. Not just 5-year-olds or 10-year-olds, all the way till they're like 60. I mean, look at you guys. You know why your parents no longer scream at you? They've given up. What else can they do? They used to call you every day, now they call you like once every 2 months. Look, Miguel Ruiz Sanchez is really good. Is that his name? It doesn't really matter. You know. I mean, look at what this government is doing to people in their lives. You remember 2008? When the country was broke? When people lost their jobs? When people lost their marriages? When people got depressed? When they committed suicide? What's the Four Agreement good for? And you know what happened? You know who got rich? The banks. The corporate world. You know what happened to you and I? They got screwed. And you know what Miguel Ruiz is good for? Forgive people. Just focus on yourself. If your neighbor shits on you, empathy. Put yourself in your neighbor's shoes. Why is he shitting on you? Yes, Elise.
I was gonna say, should you should you reflect before you forgive, or should you like forgive?
Well, it depends what the transgression is. If you and I are married and you hang out with Matthew and you do all these like things in the back seat of my truck that you borrowed, I'm not going to read the fore agreement. I'm going to say, you should meet Matthew again in the truck. And I'll find a way to, while the two of you are there, to kind of put some explosive there. Human relationships are about expectations. You got to do the work, Elise. If you want to pass this class, you got to do the work. I mean, she's doing it. He's doing it. You're not exempt from it. If I was to forgive you, that'd be injustice to him. I can give you an incomplete. I can give you an excuse withdrawal. You can just fail the class and retake it at a suitable time. We can still be friends. And hopefully we can sit and have a rational conversation about as to why I'm failing you. And hopefully you have the maturity to simply embrace and not have ridiculous expectations. Look, if you and I were to go out on a date, and if you and I were to fall in love, I'm going to tell you, look, I'm a 62-year-old man. I have another maybe 2-3 years of good life to me. You have like 50 years of good life waiting for you. Why the hell would you want to spend it on me? For what? You don't have the ability to sit back and think rationally about that relationship. That's not where you are right now. I can, but not you. I think the only people you need to forgive are your parents. But even that is conditional. If their abuse has been relatively minimal, depending on the severity of the abuse. Because, it's tough being parents. It's wonderful to have sex, tough to hear the news that I'm pregnant. It's tough not to have money. It's not to have the maturity to be parents. It's tough to struggle, to, figure out all sorts of garbage that lives inside you, also garbage that lives inside your companion, the in-laws, the outlaws, the one bedroom, working at a factory, no money, this kid that you want to protect his or her innocence, but you realize you just don't have the power to do so. I mean, it's a lot of stuff that you have to go through as a kid to be able to understand what a 40-year-old parent goes through. And it's too much, I understand, for a 12-year-old or 15-year-old. But the only way to stop going to therapy is really to simply get to a place in life as like a teenager to say, you know what, I'm going to sit and read some books. I'm going to understand what it means to be a parent. Not so much my own emotions. I want to know what it means to be a mom, what it means to be a dad, and what these two folks have to go through. And it's tough. Just because your dad comes to you and says, Elise, I'm really, really sorry for messing up your life. Well, fine, that may give you a feel-good moment, but it's not going to remove the serious wrinkles of your life that impacts your relationship, impacts your self-confidence, all the emotions you've been holding in for the past 50 years. None of those things are going to go away. And I think ultimately, if you really, really want to exercise genuine and honest forgiveness, you can't do it without a good amount of understanding. It's impossible. And just because you understand and just because that helps you to forgive it doesn't mean you need to go back. Dad, I understand why you're a drunk. I really, really understand. Life is tough. But just in case you want me back into your life, I ain't doing it. Maybe in 20, 30 years when you're sobered up. And don't read books like that. They're no good. Be practical. Really, be practical. Unless you live in like Yosemite, then you can grow wings and fly wherever. But if you live in the city, pay attention. It's dangerous. Hold on.
It's the 43.
John.
This is recent, very recent. What are your thoughts on the death of Pope?
The Pope represents an image. It's no different than when you love a girl, if you're hetero. She's an image. And that image gets really refined by this emotion we call love. Okay? You're talking about the Catholic Church. You're talking about an institution that's been around for, I don't know, 1700 years. Okay? You have an institution that has canonized the four Gospels. It has a lot of power. It also helps a lot of people around the world. Sure, it does a lot of bad things too, but it does do a lot of good things. The Pope, Papa, becomes the replacement of, he's the body of the church. And both the Pope and the church become the body of Jesus Christ. You don't need to read the Bible. All you need to do is listen to when Pope Francis talks. He has the Spirit of Christ in him. It's beautiful. Now, the moment you become critical of that image, of the church, of its power, of the abuses, then you look at this image, not so much in a positive way, but mostly negative. It's no different than any other relationship. In the first 3, 4, 5 weeks, your woman is a saintess. You love her, you adore her, you worship her. Then you realize she locks herself in the bathroom for 5 hours. Then you need to go pee, but it smells. You say, oh shit, she's human after all. And little by little, that image gets tarnished. And then you don't want to be around her, period. Miguel Ruiz Sanchez. For him, it's an image like the Pope. Beautiful. But it's just a matter of time before he comes to realize the uselessness of all those ideas. Then he falls from grace. That's what we do. And that's how things are. Power. Power. Secular power. Yeah. For where? Where are you going to go? Your life has no meaning. Where are you going? You're going to take it from what? One meaningless spot to another? I'm just kidding. Have a good time. It's good to see you, Markel. Thank you.